about the 21st word, that is about not being bored while praying. Is anybody interested in catching us up on what we've discussed so far?
Yeah.
Ali's interested.
Yeah.
Zareen, would you like to take a go of it? It's fine. You can say no. It's a democracy under me. Kadir, would you like to take a go?
No, she said democracy.
All right, I'll go. So basically, the 21st word is about Nursi's experience with
Yeah.
all right. He's protesting on my behalf. So basically, a man talks to Nursi or tells Nursi that, like the prayers are great. But when they happen every day, when we have to do them every day, 5 times a day, it gets a bit repetitive and it's wearying. And this person usually says this person is great in age, physique, and rank. So it's not like he's weak, or he can't pray. It's not like he's uneducated. He's a learned man, and he is strong, and he is a well-respected man in society. And he is saying something like that. So basically, you can expect everybody to be saying this, and not just people who are like physically weak or people who are uneducated. Everybody's saying this. And Nursi says that he felt his soul saying the same things when he, when he thought about it, when he thought on it, he found his soul saying the same thing. So he gives us these 5 warnings regarding that idea of salah being varying every day. The first warning. The first warning is about how life is temporary, and people think that life is permanent. It will go on forever, so prayer is tiring for them. The second warning is about how our stomach worshipping souls don't really feel the need for prayer, which is why they're tiring. If they felt the need, they wouldn't be tired. The third warning is about how we are being impatient. We're not taking prayers as one prayer at a time. We're thinking about the future prayers, and we're getting tired by that, and that is impatient, and it is foolish. And the fourth warning that we discussed most recently is about how we're going to get a great recompense for prayers, a great reward for prayers. And Allah has promised us all these great things. And do we not believe in Allah's promise for us to be bored by prayers or for us to be wearied by them? Before we move on to the fifth warning, would anybody like to recap the fourth warning for us and some of the things that we discussed more recently? Kadir, maybe you would like to take a stab at this. It's up to you. Ali, what do you want?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So in the fourth warning, we discussed like a couple of different things. One of them being like how Nursi also mentions here is as well as like how when someone else makes you work, and how like when they're going to give you all of the benefits at the end, you do that work lovingly. But when your creator is telling you all of this, you're not doing that work lovingly. And then there was the bridge of Sirat also mentioned here, how, and Dr. Yusuf explained this as well, like how your life and every decision that you make is a bridge of Sirat. Like every decision that you make, if it's not taking you closer to your creator, then it's a wrong decision. And after that, we also discussed the points at the end, like you will deserve a severe reprimand and awesome punishment, and what it meant, and how like this fear is also a love from the creator, that who has created you is telling, is like this warning is also a kind of like love from the creator, that kind of thing. This is the most I remember. If someone else wants to jump in.
Abdurrahman.
Jazakallah khair. I just from last week, what I remember, one thing which stands out to me is the punishment. So like because last week we're talking about punishment, like kind of it doesn't feel nice to like be threatened, but then the sort of conclusion we arrived at was the punishment, the pain, the hurt that you feel is kind of within the action itself, or like within the lack of the prayer itself. Like once you stop praying, there's a certain worldview that you fall into. There's a certain path that you go into, and things you find yourself in hell or tasting a sort of hell when you're on that path. So it seems like there's this great warning and there's this great punishment awaiting me. But in fact, it's because I choose to follow a certain path and I feel a lack of something. And that's really where the punishment is. And it's like due to my own choice, like there's a consequence of my choice. And I think that was important.
Very beautiful. Anything else anybody would like to mention? Birkan, you talked quite a lot last time. Would you like to, do you recall anything that you said?
It's a democracy.
It's fine if you don't want to.
They want your point use again.
So one maybe thing can be added is we talk about different type of rewards with the prayer, and although reward may sound a little bit like a repelling, as if we are so pious, we don't do it for reward and so on. We talk about the reward is not that doesn't need to be taken in this way. Everything we do, every action we perform comes with a reward. Every type of pleasure that we chase or that we find ourselves with is a kind of reward. And we said with the prayer, we have reward within the prayer itself, like when you pray. Even the intention to pray comes with a reward. So the reward is at every stage. And then it also has the other rewards regarding how a future is projected in your current moment, how you see your future is changing with prayer. And the future itself is reshaped with the prayer. So the reward was everywhere. We discussed. So it cannot be compared to any type of relationship we have in this worldly life, because the examples the author was giving, like you work for a job, for instance, and the only reward you get is the salary you get at the end. So you have to wait for, let's say, 30 days. But with prayer, it's not that way. The reward is immediate, and not only one type of reward, but many. We talk about different types of rewards, how it illuminates the darkness of our grave. That was one example. And yeah, that's it.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. I'll highlight some of the things that stood out for me, and then if nobody has any other comments, we can move on to the fifth warning. So something Sarah said that I found very beautiful was she mentioned Surah Maun, and she said that there's a warning for people who delay their prayers. And if you delay your prayer, it's basically like there's a hypocrisy in there, right? You're saying you are an abd, you are a believer, but then when it actually comes to show that, or to show that through actions, you delay your prayer, and there is a hypocrisy there. I thought that was very, that stood out for me. And then I guess we talked about how prayer makes you a conscious believer. And I guess we talked about this in the context of the Bridge of Sirat. And I will literally just read what Yusuf said. He said, life is like a bridge of Sirat. So your car breaks down and you can see that. And if you curse, it's basically like you fall in hell. But if you see that, if you see the wisdom and the will of the creator in that, that will help you pass that bridge. Otherwise, you get burned. And basically, the idea, the reason why Nursi mentioned the mount or Burak in the passage was to basically show that your prayer helps you get to that destination or helps you cross that bridge faster. And then there was this question of how is prayer Burak? And it's Burak because it helps you realize that you are needy and somebody is taking care of you. And it helps with conscious togetherness with God. It helps you arrive at the conclusion fast. So that was basically the idea. And then I guess the last thing is we did talk about rewards quite a lot. And I guess there was this question that I also had, which was of like, why is Nursi like tempting us with this reward of paradise and all these things? Like, isn't prayer in and of itself enough? And I guess like something, I don't know who said this, but maybe it was Berkan, but it was like, if your kid is reading and you say, hey, you know, like if you read this paragraph, I'm going to give you this candy, the child will think, oh, you know, my reward is candy. But actually that reward is reading for that child because he is learning through that. So it's like we are tempted by all these different things because Salah is so important that God just wants you to go towards it from, if not through one avenue, through another avenue. And we may not realize it, or not everyone might realize this, but the reward that we're actually getting is Salah in and of itself. That is all that I have to say on the fourth warning. Does anybody have any other comments? Berkan. Oh, good.
So last week I reacted a little bit negatively to this prayer in itself. Isn't it enough part? I want to reiterate my negative reaction.
Okay.
So when we take prayer as just a prayer, it becomes like a kind, like I'm making a lot of jumps, but the way I feel, sometimes we take prayer as a cultural concept, right? So as a Muslim, I'm supposed to be praying, and it's good for me. It is my miraj, and so on and so forth. But all these, like even the word miraj, comes as a package, and we say that, you know, the prayer is good in itself. There's no need to discuss about the heaven, everlasting life, and so on. I think, and this is a call for discussion, the prayer, worship, miraj, even Rab, Abd, all these concepts only make sense when we realize our fundamental needs, and one of them, or the biggest of them, being the everlasting or eternal peace, eternal life, eternal presence, which is, you know, the heaven. Only through these need, everything else makes sense. Otherwise, we try to, to take the human out of the equation, as if trying to find a scientific, objective, whatever system in which there's a value in the prayer, there's a value in doing this, there's a value in doing that, and then discussing it. But all these things, even the religious concepts that might be, new to us, but I think that even the religious concepts, even the most, let's say, important ones, only make sense through human needs. So I need, and I am created with this desire to everlasting, eternal peace. And to the extent I can satisfy, I can see that something satisfies this need, this thing is valuable for me. Otherwise, even if it has any value, I wouldn't know as a human being. So prayer has a value in itself, yes, to the extent prayer itself reminds me or shows me the ways to satisfy this need. So I pray because it's the only way I make a connection with the source of peace that I'm when I'm needing. Otherwise, again, like taking out the human's needs, desires, and trying to attribute some value to things like a prayer, at least to me, doesn't make much sense. But again, this is open to discussion.
Go ahead.
So I think then in this sense, we can expand what they mean by prayer in and of itself. Because I think maybe the understanding or the question is coming from, as you were mentioning, our understanding of like those benefits as if they are detached, extra, separate. I mean, the way we learned religion initially from our parents, like this is probably is going to be the case for our little Ali as well. You're speaking things in a way that that child or that person can understand at that level. And initially it is, if you do this, it's going to be a lot of reward. If you don't do this, it's going to be a punishment. And it might give the impression of, oh, I got 100 from that prayer, 57 from that prayer, like midterm final exam numbers. And generally those numbers are, in our understanding, like keeping account of them, is detached from the learning aspect of exams. Like you do learn something in the exam, you take the exam and you get a number. And what you learn is, normally it should be a sign of what you learn, but getting an A from a class is not anything different than you learning things in the class. It is just a indication of it. But for certain students, it's like, oh, you get an A, but let's say you cheated in the class and whatnot. You didn't learn anything, you got an A. So getting an A versus learning are separate things. It could be understood as such. Normally, it's not supposed to be. But because of my understanding, it could be. Same thing applies with prayer. Let's say prayer is rewarded with paradise. Prayer is rewarded with light in the grave. So I can take them as detached, saying that if you do this, I'm going to give you that sort of a unrelated understanding. But I mean, to a certain extent, it could be fine. But after a certain point, if you start getting disturbed with this perspective, then that means your creator is inviting you for something else. So what's that invitation for? Then at that moment, we need to question, what does it mean? What is paradise? What is hell? What is light in the grave? And what is its relationship with the prayer? Is the relationship something such as, oh, you studied the class and you learned, and as a sign of you learning, somebody put a name to it, which is A, but it's just a signature of your achievement. Otherwise, it's not like detached from what's going on. All of them are happening at the same time. So in this sense, the benefits of the prayer in this case is the creator is creating them all at once. You do the prayer with that training, because what is the gist of the prayer? What do we were talking about this with Qadir. So salat, another meaning of salat is to support. Like when we talk about, as in the verse, it says, Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. So indeed, the creator and the angels make salat on or up on the messenger. So what sort of a salat is it? Like they don't turn towards them and make salat, right? Salli. So, but it's a different salat. So in their salat is supporting the messenger. And the remaining of the verse is saying that, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. So you those who believe, make salat to the messenger as well. So the word salat in there, which would also be the case for our Tuesday study this week, in Surah Ma'un, when salat is mentioned in there, it's that version of salat. So supporting. So what does my prayer support? By doing the prayer, what do I support? my conviction about the fact that I am a servant, I am needy, I am being provided, sustained. So my need, I'm representing my neediness, demonstrating my neediness to myself. This is why Fatiha is really the gist of that prayer. If we go through the verses in Fatiha, we are saying that all praise is to you. I am needy, or we are needy. We only seek your help. So I am strengthening, supporting my convictions about what I am. As much as these convictions sink into my life, then I will start seeing that the tree outside is also needy and is being supported. The sun over there, moon over there is being created, is being supported, is needy as I am, and is being created. The COVID virus is a creation, a needy creation, is being created. But up to here, I was seeing it as an enemy. Now I start seeing it as same type of creation as I am. COVID is not my enemy anymore. It was something that was putting me into hell. I was super afraid of it as it's going to destroy me. But now the COVID virus became my friend in existence, in creation. So now even death itself becomes my friend. Now death is not this dragon which is going to destroy me. It becomes a horse, as maybe we can read it at some point. Nursi says death with the eye of neglect is a dragon which is going to destroy you. But once you look at it with the lens of Iman, it becomes the horse which takes you to paradise. The same existence I am in, but everything starts changing because I am changing. The prayer is changing me, making me realize, affirm that I am needy, and I am now turning towards someone who is going to provide my needs. Since I have this perspective, I start seeing everyone as I am. Like if you are a bad person, you think that everybody is bad. If you're a good person, you start seeing everybody good. What's that? Okay, sorry about that. This was like... So prayer is then, this is why the word we used last week, organic. Prayer is organically giving me these results. So initially I thought that it was detached, separate, disconnected. Now I'm realizing that no, as I do this, this becomes the, quote unquote, I don't want to say natural, but the way the creator is immediately giving it. So this is his habit of creating.
Does anyone have anything else to say regarding this? Also, what is the drug of neglect? What's the drug of neglect?
Eye of neglect?
Yeah. What was that thing?
Okay, so like if neglectful with negligence, with ghafla, if I look at death, it becomes like a dragon. But if I look at it from a God conscious belief perspective, it becomes the horse that serves you to take you to eternal life.
Okay. Does anyone else have something to add? Would you like to continue the discussion, or is it okay if we move on? Okay. All right. So if nobody has anything else to say, I think we're going to move on to the fifth warning, in which Nursi basically talks to the world worshipping soul, and talks to it about how it is distracted by worldly things. And he also talks about the importance of investing in prayers and how prayers turn your worldly affairs into a source of blessing for you. Who would like to read? Anybody who has not had the chance to read for us before? You? Yeah, please. Aishanur. To the end of the next page.
Okay, inshallah. So fifth warning, O my world worshipping soul, does your slackness in worship and remissness in the prescribed prayers arise from the multiplicity of your worldly occupations, or because you cannot find time due to the struggle for livelihood? Were you created only for this world that you spend all your time on it? You know that in regard to your abilities, you are superior to all the animals. But in regard to procuring the necessities of worldly life, you cannot compete with even a sparrow. So why can you not understand that your basic duty is not to labor like an animal, but to strive for a true, perpetual life like a true human being? In addition, the things you call worldly occupations mostly do not concern you and are trivial matters which you meddle in officiously. You neglect the essential things and pass your time acquiring inessential information as though you were going to live for 1,000 years. For example, you squander your precious time on worthless things, like learning what the rings around Saturn are like, or how many chickens there are in America, as though you were becoming an expert in astronomy or statistics. Should I continue to end of page?
Yes.
Okay. If you say, what keeps me from the prayers and worship and causes me to be lax is not unnecessary things like that, but essential matters like earning a livelihood, then my answer is this. If you work for a daily wage of 100 cents, and someone comes to you and says, come and dig here for 10 minutes, and you will find a brilliant and emerald worth $100. If you reply, no, I won't come, because 10 cents will be cut from my wage, and my subsistence will be less, of course you understand what a foolish pretext it would be. In just the same way, you work in this orchard for your livelihood. If you abandon the obligatory prayers, all the fruits of your effort will be restricted to only a worldly, unimportant, and unproductive livelihood. But if you spend your rest periods on the prayers, which allow your spirit to relax and heart to take a breather, you will discover two minds which are an important source both for a productive worldly livelihood and your livelihood and provisions of the hereafter. First mind, through a sound intention, you will receive a share of the praises and glorifications offered by all the plants and trees, whether flowering or fruit-bearing, that you grow in the garden. Second mind, whatever is eaten of the garden's produce, whether by animals or man, cattle or flies, buyers or thieves, it will become like almsgiving for you. But on condition you work in the name of the true provider and within the bounds of what he permits, and see yourself as a distribution official giving his property to his creatures. So see what a great loss is made by one who abandons the prescribed prayers, what significant wealth he loses, and he is deprived of those two results in minds which would otherwise cause him to work eagerly and ensure his morale is strong. He becomes bankrupt. Even as he grows old, he will grow weary of gardening and lose interest in it, saying, What is it to me? I am anyway leaving this world. Why should I put up with this much difficulty? He will sink into idleness. But the first man says, I shall work harder at both worship and illicit activities in order to send even more abundant light to my grave and procure more provisions for my life in the hereafter.
Jazakallah. Thank you. Any initial comments?
One comment, that was a very beautiful video.
All right. Jazakallah. Any productive comments?
Yes, absolutely.
Atik. Aisha, could you pass him the mic?
Once you hold it.
Yeah.
I guess what this this warning is saying to me is that the true wealth is the maybe a spiritual unseen wealth that you get from the prayer, that whatever you gain of the material world through jobs and money, currency, that's nothing compared to what you may earn through the prayers. And so what that suggests to me is it might be the most efficient
use of my time and resources to collect welfare and just spend my whole days, in prayer and dhikr and Quran. I mean, amazing, right? Is that not the message that Nursi is, promoting here? Is that not for the benefit of society?
Anybody else?
So when I was, I guess, listening to Aisha read through, the first thing I thought about was sort of the opposite. I got his message, but I was thinking currently how it's true that I am thinking, oh, I would want to be an expert at something. Like, so what he's saying is not wrong, but I also think about like, then what am I, like, how am I deceiving myself, right? And instead of collecting welfare, what is the alternative then, right? Like, you certainly do want to pray, but what is the moderate level? Because you would have to live life somehow too, or am I
What is this one? I missed it. Sorry, the first part of the question, moderate.
moderate? What part?
That part, like, I didn't get it.
Oh, I was just saying, like, where, how can we be moderate, right? Like, you don't want to be on the extreme end and just also not contribute when you can help out. But also you don't want to stay there and be working and then now you've missed like a couple of prayers. So what is the middle ground for this?
Would anybody like to answer that? Or are there any other questions? Abdurrahman.
I don't have an answer, but just like to add on to the questions, I guess, like here, Nursi kind of throws some shade at you spend time learning worthless things like the rings around Saturn, or how many chickens there are in America. I think chickens in America, okay, sure. Who cares? But I mean, I also don't believe Nursi is saying, oh, don't look at the sky, don't look at the stars, don't examine them, don't do research about them. I doubt he's saying this because I mean, maybe he is, but then it doesn't make sense to me because I think there's a wonder, there's an amazement that you feel when you do look at the stars and when you do read about all the research that the scientists have done and what they've learned, and it just increases the awe you have for the creation around you. So I don't, my understanding, I mean, I think he must not be saying, don't observe what's around you, because he's saying, no, look at the gardens, look at the trees, look at the flowers. He's saying, look at all this beautiful creation. Just don't look at Saturn. Like, I don't think this is the attitude. The attitude is maybe probably more, I'm guessing, and that this is part of the question, I'm guessing, is the attitude just learning about Saturn's rings just to learn about Saturn's rings, just to say, oh, now I learned something, or to have pride potentially. Like, I don't know what's the intentionality with which he's saying this. It doesn't really make sense to me because it's the same as just observing everything else. And if I didn't observe, then I wouldn't be able to read, and I wouldn't have a reason to pray if I didn't observe either. I need to observe, I need to live, I need to have experiences, I need to have a full life so that I can then go and my prayer, I can, have a connection with my creator in my prayer because I have all these experiences.
Aishanur, did you have a comment? Okay.
I was just thinking about how I think we should contextualize what he's saying in this passage with how he begins the passage, right? And it's directed towards one's nafs, one's inclinations that like look to the world and complain about the limitations of time. Like, I don't have enough time, because that seems to be the essence of the complaint here, right? Does your slackness in worship come from the multiplicity of your occupations, because you're preoccupied with so many things, or because you can't, you're too busy, with work and school and family and all these things, and in the midst of it, prayer gets kind of lost or just an afterthought. So I feel like what he's saying about Saturn, or, I think for those interested in statistics, like amount of chickens in America is very interesting and can offer different dimensions and layers. And, like some of us read Wikipedia articles for fun. There's all these things that I spend my time doing. So if my complaint is oriented towards a lack of time, then I have no excuses, because one, I definitely spend it on things that are not very profitable. And two, I guess going back to the first paragraph, he says, like if I compare my ability or capacity, let's say, to assure my livelihood with that of like just a normal cat, I can't compete with the cat. Like it will never be enough for me, even though like the cat will be satisfied. But clearly I have many other qualities, many other abilities, faculties that might be to a greater degree than a cat. So if I'm striving for things that other, that animals in the world are clearly better at, then maybe I'm not utilizing my time in the most efficient way or to the purpose of what has been given to me. So I guess here, just my comment is about looking at his comments in the context of this very, like, do I have that complaint of, I want to pray, but like the time just goes by and, I forgot about it, or I didn't realize it, or time is tight. Is that a genuine complaint I can have? Is time always limited for even something as essential as prayer? And also, I guess that maybe we'll discuss this a bit later, that it says, if I abandon the obligatory prayers, the fruits of everything that I'm doing otherwise will also be negated, right? And maybe we can discuss, well, what does it mean for the fruits of things? Like I'm working on, let's say, a project, like what if I don't pray, the fruits of that project are not going to be present. So that's something that we can discuss. But I guess also in just this last comment, in response to maybe this might not answer a question, but the question about, how do we become one? I don't think he's saying like, yeah, you can work for your livelihood, but recognize that, if time is the main complaint, it's not a justifiable complaint. Yeah, I'll leave it at that for now. Yusuf.
So it looks like Twitter is not a new phenomenon. So once I read that, this is what I realized. Because X, Facebook, whatever. So in human, there's this tendency to waste time using seemingly interesting things. And there's this joy of anything new, gives this momentary joy of interesting. But that interesting could be for the purpose of finding a truth in it, as Abdurrahman was describing, but it could also be that, oh, it looks nice, or it looks weird, it looks just new. So that sort of a waste of interest was an interesting topic to be mentioned here. As if you have infinite time, you are busying yourself with not so important things. And I take them to be part of, as if it has to be there. It is taken as the norm. Prayer is the extra. Like I'm as if the author is inviting me to question, where does your time go? There are many things that you are spending your time to, and you never even take them as waste. But the 5-10 minutes or half an hour that you put into the prayer becomes too large in your eyes. So that seems interesting. Like it might be, for instance, as we were today discussing at Drexel, I was asking, what do you love? Tell me something that you love. Somebody said Liverpool. Like supporting a soccer team it's your rightful thing, right? Especially if you are a male, of course you will support a soccer team. And if you support the soccer team, even your wife cannot question to watch the match, right? I mean, even your wife, I'm saying. Like it is the I mean, it's one of the most basic needs of humanity, as if in today's world. I mean, it doesn't need to be just the rings of the Saturn, right? Something as simple as that. It became part of our routine, and when we sit together with someone, so what sports do you follow? Which team do you support? I mean, these just became the norm, part of the norm. And the author is saying how important they are. You never take them as extra or waste or anything of that sort. But even if it's a soccer match, I will wait for the game to come into a break, and then so that in 10 minutes, 15 minutes in between, at best, I'm going to squeeze in my prayer in there. Like in our understanding of priority, where does it fit into? So I think at least more than anything, this fifth one is making me question my priorities, because maybe I'm not abandoning the prayer, but I am postponing it. I am postponing it after something. What is that reason of postponing? Is it more important than the prayer? That do I keep postponing? Most of the time, I don't even question that. But I mean, all apart from that Twitter or Instagram part of it was also interesting, because really, now that we have those apps in the phone which says how much time is used for each app, at the end of the day, if I go and check how many minutes I spend in Instagram, how many minutes in Twitter, so for what? What did I learn? I mean, at some point I was following Twitter for following only the academics, so that people are posting their new papers in there. It was easier to follow it there. But then I realized it is more like if I'm getting 100 liters of something, if you squeeze it, 1 liter of benefit I was getting out of that. But then 99 of it was still a lot of mental junk I was being exposed to. I mean, although like they are academics, so it's their level of junk is a little more refined, sophisticated junk, but still it was draining my energy, mental energy, when my focus was being drained. So why? What do I do with that? I mean, if it's not Instagram, probably in the olden days, it used to be gossiping about the townspeople. You heard what she said about this person, that person. So I guess that sort of questioning is there.
Jazakallah. Furqan. Kadir.
No, I just wanted to make a point to what Atiq said earlier. It's the translation from Surah Al-Jumu'ah, verse 10. And then when the prayer is ended, you are free to disperse through the land and seek Allah's bounty, and remember Allah that much that you may be saved. So basically it says that go to the remembrance of Allah and pray. And once the prayer has ended, go back to your worldly, like what you are doing or what your business is, what your trade is. And even in that trade, remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And through that remembrance, you will succeed. So that is what I wanted to mention.
There's a old, the psychologist, legendary one. There's a paper called "Why I Don't Attend to Case Conferences." The case conferences are like, people come together, talk about a case, like a person, like Qadir, with a nickname. He has such and such, the issues, what kind of diagnosis you think he has, and so on. Like they come together and discuss this. Maybe it's a new type of, the condition that we are not aware, and so on. And he says every time, I attend such conferences, somebody would say, "Oh yeah, this is not a symptom. My uncle has this." Like everybody, as if, just the fact that his or her uncle has this same, the behavioral, the trait makes it normalized, right? So I think we do the same thing all the time, like especially when we talk about the values, the priorities. we look at ourselves or the people around us and say that, but everybody does that, right? And I'm spending all my time in the university or with my work, and my excuse is that, but look at this person who is a famous Muslim preacher, he's also doing that. So as if this normalized thing for us. So we're trying to find such excuses. When it comes to our works, when it comes to our, almost everything about worldly life, I guess we have to be courageous and honest to ourselves and ask the question, like, forget about what people think, forget about how people define this normativity for you. Ask yourself whether it makes sense or not. And we usually want to get answers about, for instance, like with ethics comment, like whether I spend all my time with the pray like a reading Quran, or I go outside and study universe, look at the Saturn, other planets to reach this wisdom about my creator and so on. Like we want some external criterion to tell us that you can spend that much time with your profession, you can spend that much time with reading Quran, and this is permissible, this is not permissible. But I guess the real question is, what do you think? Like, look at your life, everything you do, and just remember that you will die. And you can die just in the moment right now. How many of things that you give value stays with you? Let's assume, may Allah forgive, and may Allah protect, that I tell you that you have a cancer and you only have a few months left. Do you really think that you would spend, the same amount of time by counting the chickens or Saturn rings, or going to lab, trying to finish your, the experiments and so on and so forth? I'm sure there are people would say yes. There are people would say, going back to our earlier discussion, the value in itself, and say that the reading a book is a valuable thing to me just by itself. So I will spend the rest of my life to 2 months just reading as many books as I can. There are people like that would say that.
Yeah.
And I think that the only reason is, as author says at the very beginning of this 5th warning, is that we think we are animals. And we have these infinitely many years that we can spend on everything. Like he says, when you compare yourself with the animal, you are lower than a bird with respect to gaining your livelihood. But you have some, what was the translation? I forgot. I read from the Turkish, sorry. I apologize for that. We are not created only for this world, that you spend your time on it. Regard to your abilities, you are superior to all the animals. So abilities, it's like your potential, right? You have such a great potential as a human being. And I think we need to elaborate this a little bit more. What type of potential we're talking about? You have all this potential, but you still spending it on earning your livelihood or reading books. To me, it doesn't there's not much difference. Just because one is seemingly more intellectual, the other is, anybody can do, doesn't change anything. As a human being, the great potential you have is not fulfilled by reading just books and gaining all this information and so on. It's something an animal would do. Like a cow, for instance, eat grass because with every bite, it gains something, gains a pleasure. It's a worldly pleasure, not just eating it, taste. The same thing with reading books or doing your scientific profession, whatever. It gives you a taste, a pleasure to your mind, but it stays there. Nothing you read, unless it, ties to your human potential, takes you or, goes beyond, accompany you to your grave. Nothing. No matter how many things you learn, no matter how many different type of literally types they finish, nothing matters. When you learn you have a cancer, you have only 2 weeks to live, to live. You don't care any of this. So I guess these, how am I going to know what to do? You can answer that. What you are, like how you define yourself, what you are as a human being. Because people will define it for us. People will say, the human being is the one who learns. So you have to spend your time reading as many books as you can. Like I'm giving this example a lot. People would think I hate reading books, but anyway, or counting the rings of the Saturn, because it's so, the glorified thing. You learning about the universe, your curiosity, your, the intellectual pursuit or whatever. People will define it for us. People will say, as the more you do such things, you become more valuable. You have some
No.
problem? I can stop.
No,
That's all. Yeah, I'm done.
no.
I think you wrapped it up.
The finishing touches.
Okay.
Because right now I'm like, oh, learning is works.
So I guess the question is why you are doing it. That's to me at least what author is questioning. What is the purpose? If you are doing it to earn your livelihood, that's a waste of time for sure, and you know that, because you can earn your livelihood with the at least 1/4 of the time you spend for your work. You can still earn your livelihood to allow you to live. That's a waste of time for sure. If you are doing to satisfy your curiosity, waste of your time. Because your curiosity is like a fire. You feed it, it becomes bigger. You feed it, it becomes bigger, and doesn't touch anything. If you are doing it to become a bigger and bigger intellectual, waste of your time. Because your brain or wherever the intellect is in your body will be rotten in the grave. The books, people will read it a few maybe years, maybe a few centuries, and then start making fun of them. Like we even make fun of them, Aristotle, the Newton, whatever. They were right in this, but they were they thought this way, we say. Waste of your time. So why you are doing it? And the author says, the way I understand is most of the things you do, maybe 90% of them, you cannot give a proper answer. And then you will know that they are waste. So how you know that you are living a moderate life? You ask the question, whether it stays beyond the grave or not, whether it satisfies my human needs or not. Otherwise, we will try to find like other excuses. Maybe it doesn't, satisfy me, but it will help other people. If something doesn't help you, wouldn't help others either. So I guess the answer is with us. What is my human potential? What is the reason I'm created for? and learning a new technology satisfy this need, yeah, go and learn this technology. But don't fool yourself. Don't say that, I'm learning about my Rob within my profession and so on. It should be the other way around. Like, you should be looking for your Rob and trying to learn. And to the extent your profession helps, you would do it. But how we do it? We live for our professions and try to fit Rob into our professions. The glorious Muslim scientists and so on, at least some of them, they didn't study universe to study universe. They have the questions to maybe better understand a verse in Quran or some other reasons about their relationship with their Rabb, and they had to do it to answer some questions, but it's not the case for us. So honesty, that's the wrapping up.
Jazakallah, very beautiful.
Yeah.
Ati? Ati?
So yeah, I would go back to the line where it says, if you abandon the obligatory prayers, all the fruits of your effort will be restricted to only a worldly, unimportant, and unproductive livelihood. And so what's interesting to me is that, the prayer itself, it is a physical, there are physical rules and there's a precise order, a right way of doing something. You have to recite these certain words in a certain way. And if you mess it up, you might, mess up your entire prayer. But despite the, being rooted in physical things, the prayer does not, it does not keep you in the physical realm, right? It connects you to the divine, the unseen, the otherworldly. And so I guess, the corollary, something like that, the opposite of what it's saying is that if you keep the obligatory prayers, then the fruits of your efforts will, it won't be restricted to a worldly thing. It will be elevated to a otherworldly, a divine, important, and productive livelihood. And it would be referring to not just the prayer itself, but, something like learning about the rings of Saturn or counting chickens, that will be elevated in a way. And so, through association with the prayer, or having prayer in your life, it will influence the worldly things that you do and allow you to reach the divine through them. Maybe it's through the understanding the magnificence of the creation and who or what created it and in what way, or I don't know, something about chickens, how he provides for what he creates, something like that.
Very beautiful. Jazakallah. Kadir, would you like to go? Okay. If you remember what you... Okay. I guess this point also reminds me of like what we discussed about regarding Amalus Saleh. So, and how like acts that you were going to do anyway are made better with Iman. So we talked about how like Amalus Saleh becomes Saleh when you have Iman. So it's like, I used to give like good deeds. So Amal is, I guess, act, and then Saleh is righteous. So it's like I used to give like money to poor people, right? And I would just be like, yeah, like I'm just giving this because whatever, like end homelessness, I don't even what? I don't do it for that reason anymore, like it was just like, oh, even if I don't get rewarded for it, like it's fine because you have to do this, but I didn't connect it to Allah necessarily, right? I didn't have that like Iman connection. I didn't think that money came from Allah. I thought it was my money, but I thought I was giving it to poor people. And even though I didn't want a reward for it, I did think it was a good act that everybody should do. But that act, even if I still do the same act today, but I have that Iman and I make that connection with Allah and I say, oh, like I am giving this money because this is not my money. This is money that I have been given from Allah. This is Allah's money, and he has been and I've been instructed to spend it in these specific ways. So I'm going to do that. Then that same amal, that same act becomes salih. So so this like passage reminds me, and Atiq's comment also reminds me of that, of how like you are going to be working on that orchard anyway, right? You're going to be sowing that seed, you're going to be like doing work on it. But when you have prayer, then you are going to make a connection to Allah. When you see that tree, when you see that fruit tree growing, you're going to make a connection to Allah. So that work that you're doing anyway, those like worldly affairs, they become a source of blessing and even further reward for you. And they become a source of connection. So it's like, it's just the best of both worlds. So the salah in and of itself is giving you benefit, but then those worldly affairs also are giving you benefit when you are praying alongside them. Does anybody have any other questions, comments, concerns? Yusuf.
So, yeah, I mean, these two minds that the author is mentioning, it's worthy to dig deeper. So he says, if you do your prayers, these are the two resources that you will benefit from, like as sources of good deed. One is with your sound intention, you will receive a share of praises and glorifications offered by all the plants and trees, whether flowering or fruit bearing, that you grow in the garden.
We didn't read the footnote. So what
Oh, yeah.
garden is that?
Yeah, so this part was, the first station was a lesson for someone in a garden explained in this way. So that text was written and was given as a lesson to a farmer. So he's giving this example saying that you are doing this job of farming with a sound intention. All the trees that you grow are praising the Creator, right? Yes. So you are going to receive a share of their praises as if you did this praise, which is very nice, right? I mean, like automatically you are having workers which pray on behalf of you. Cool. The second mind is, if somebody eats from your garden, let it be a fly, let it be a human, cattle, or even a thief, or somebody buys it and eats because even says buyers or thieves, it will become an almsgiving from you. Like a thief gets it, it's become like a charity you did. Somebody buys it, still it becomes like a charity from you. Interesting. I mean, that's good. Sounds good. But how is this the case? I mean, what's the relationship? Again, if you think about it as an organic relationship between me praying and after I pray, these two are going to become not detached, unrelated results, but relevant results of my worship. Which, as Atiq was now talking about it. So with the prayer, I am training. Prayer is a training. Like, take it this way. If you are an artist, now that we have artists here. So when I first rented the house, I just looked at, oh, it's white, and I jumped into the house. I'm looking at it as an engineer. So it has rooms and everything is nice.
Yeah, say engineer.
Okay. So the moment she came into the house, the first thing she saw was the painting of the walls were so horrible, which I have lived in the house for 6 months and I have never seen it. Like it never attracted my attention. So if you train your eyes for a certain thing, it starts shouting at you. If you're untrained in that, you live in this house for so long, it doesn't bother you. You don't even see it, or you just say, oh, who cares? Because the house was large enough and this is what I cared about. So with the prayer, my interests are now changing because I am becoming a person who is needy and aware of this need, and this need is being provided. This becomes center of my world to the extent that I am conscious about it. Now that I'm realizing that neediness is what defines me, and me being provided is the biggest part of my world because I am so needy and somebody is taking care of me, then well, when I look at the tree, like in this example, it's a tree that I think I was growing, I realized that, oh, it's not me who is growing that tree. That tree is being provided. That tree is being sustained. The fruits are being put in there. So they are not like previously, maybe I would be saying that, come and look at my garden, how great it is, right? Who did it? I would say. But now I would try saying that the one who gives me life is the one who puts those fruits over there. They are praising their creator. They are not praising my hard work. That beautiful tree is praising their creator. And I will start hearing that praise. Before I was not hearing it. After I started praying, I start seeing that everything else is also praying. That prayer was not visible to me or was non-existent to me before I started praying. After I started praying, I start realizing that everything else is also praying. They become like my friends in the masjid. We are praying together now because they are praying, I am praying. We do it together now. So my reward multiplied by 27. If we go with the narrations of praying together with Jama'ah, with the congregation, now I started seeing them as my friends in the congregational prayer. So it's a much richer understanding of worship to me as well. So they are increasing my understanding of worship, my understanding of the creator. So the first one makes perfect sense. I will receive a share of their praises and glorifications. I now do start seeing that, yeah, they also praise the creator. The second one is that everything becomes an almsgiving from me. Like anybody who eats from that garden, I will start seeing it as, initially I would say that as if I am giving it from my own pockets. I raised them, I am the farmer here. Those are my property. Now I am giving it to you out of my own good. But as I will start, I am a worshiper. Everything is given to me. That garden is being given to, like all the fruits are being given to the plants. So their owner is the creator. So if somebody comes and eats it, let it be a thief, let it be a customer, doesn't matter. I would see it as my creator is feeding them. So from my perspective, I was just an intermediary, like the plants are intermediaries. So I am giving it in the name of the creator now. I'm not giving it in the name of me. I'm not giving it in the name of nature or, that specific, do they call race for the plant as well? Species, or that specific species, it's more tasty. No, the creator is creating it. It's not belonging to that species. It's not inherent to it. It's the creator is giving it. So it becomes a almsgiving because zakat means you just give it in the sense that to declare that it has an owner. It's not mine. So with that lens, prayer is instilling this lens to me. This is why as I pray, my actions will become worship. The other, like my wife seeing the paintings in the house.
Very beautiful. Jazakallah. Does anybody have any questions regarding the two minds? Or otherwise? Yes, break on.
Something.
Okay. So I want to go back to the beginning where the author discussed about human potential. So maybe we can open it up a little bit more. So it says, based with respect to your abilities, your potentiality, you are much better than animals. But with respect to earning your livelihood, is that what it says?
Procuring the necessities.
Yeah, procuring the necessities of your life. You cannot even compete with a bird. So when I look at the bird or any animal, actually, like for them, finding the food seems pretty easy, right? You just fly a little bit and land on anything, and then you find something there. So they're like it seems much easier to them. They also seems to be much talented than I am. Finding the food, protecting their families, building their houses. I'm spending all these years to, save some money so that I will buy a house, and a bird can, build its house itself in a few days, maybe, I don't know. And like for its own standard and relative to its, the body and so on, it's much better than what I do for myself. Like their house versus my house, like in terms of how it serves the needs. So that's interesting. And we usually don't take it that way. We assume that we are the conqueror of the nature, whereas we cannot even compete with these animals with respect to the basic stuff. But he says there's another dimension of humanity, that you are much better than animals. So you should find these dimension and spend your time with that part. If you spend your time with the other part, which is what we always do, trying to save more money so that we will get a better house, better clothing, food, and so on. What is this dimension? That we are unique as a human being, much better than, or let's say, have a bigger potentiality compared to the other creatures. Author somehow says it's about the prayer. But yeah, I just want to pose this question and stop there.
I guess I
Specific question.
Okay, the question is, what is this human potential that makes you, a bigger, better than other creatures? What is it that, makes you human, not a bird?
guess I took it in a I don't know if we understood it the same way, because the way I understood it, it was like ability to do everything, So it's like if a bird is building a nest, I can build a better home than a bird can build a nest. Or, bird can fly, I can fly. I have abilities. I have like intellect. I can think, I can, make a painting, and a bird can't do that, or animals can't do that. So it's like in so many ways, in communication even, or whatever, we're so much better than them. But then when it comes to acquiring the necessities of life, we are so bad. So it's like for a bird, like it knows what its needs are and it focuses on its needs, right? So its need would be to feed itself. Its need would be to build a nest, to procreate, feed its kids, like train them to fly. And that's it. It is not going to try to compete with other birds to, I don't know, do whatever. It is not going to try to turn into a lion. But it's like for humans, we are not focused on what our needs as the human beings are. We are focused on what like these other things that we can gain from our abilities. Like we don't need to fly, but our abilities make that possible. So we're like, okay, we're going to spend our time in that. So it's like we're better than animals in our abilities, but when it comes to recognizing what our needs are and working towards getting those needs, like Salah, or, like in the second morning, it talked about how like why we needed Salah, how it is good for our soul or good for our heart. We don't focus on that. We're just focused on like other things like accumulation and whatnot. That's how I understood it.
May I add something like to that?
Yeah, answer your question.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I would say I think Dr. Yusuf mentioned this at some of the discussions, I think so. But the way he described it as so for example, a bird, they just have to do like normal routine stuff, go out there, pick up their food and eat it. For us humans, there's like a lot of different things. Like if you do not realize that who your creator is, what your essential needs are. For example, if you're not praying, you're going to live a miserable life. You're in depression constantly. If you compare that miserable life to a bird or any creature that is outside, your life is worse than theirs. Like they just have to eat their food, go about their day. But you are constantly living in depression or all of those things if you do not realize like your human potential. And what that human potential could be as the ability to learn, uh, the ability to learn about the creator through the creation. So yeah, that's what I wanted to point out.
To your point, so I don't think we are doing things better than other animals with respect to worldly life. Like flying, for instance, we don't fly better than birds. Like just watch a few minutes of a bird flying naturally or making all these maneuvers. What is the word? Maneuvers. Oh, forget about the birds, the mosquitoes. The way they fly, no way. Like no way that you can, with all your technology, you cannot compete. But that's not the point. Like the thing is, like he says, I mean, look at these examples. What does this tell you? It says you are not created for that. So in my profession, for instance, I'm in a psychiatry department, as I told you, but as I'm an engineer, right? The moments that I have the illusion that I can be like psychiatrists because I'm in a psychiatry department, that I pretend as if, that's my profession. I see that I'm just a mediocre psychiatrist. Like, even if I'm a psychiatrist or a psychologist, I'm just a mediocre, not even mediocre one, really bad one. But when I accept that I'm an engineer and I'm, doing this type of works which are unique, whatever, that thing, I'm pretty good. So the same way, like you look at yourself as a human being, and if you try to compete with the rest of the creation in the worldly matters, like flying, running, building houses, and so on, or even clothing, what sounds like you will be just a mediocre one. Because you are not created for that. Why you are spending your time with this? You have all these other potentials, the abilities that you are superior, that nothing can, compete with you, the rest of the creation. And the question is, what is this thing that you are superior? Because the naturalistic explanation will tell that we are, as human beings, as you said, we can learn. But the way it will be, presented is that we can learn and build machines that can fly. That's what makes us human beings. Why? Like the machine that I'm building is not even, how as good as a bird. Why I'm spending my life to build a mediocre flying machine? So this is not being a human being. Or you can learn about, these other technologies, the secrets of the universe, whatever. Whatever you are trying to learn about the universe, it's already like a better known, but by other creatures. Why you are wasting your time with that? You are not created for that.
Okay, so I had two thoughts while I was listening. The first one is that I think whenever a human is compared to animal, I have a hard time just because I don't know if we understand humans, like humans, animals, because whether that's language or emotion, like I cannot verify anything. So it's a huge assumption, but nothing to verify it with. So unless I can figure out somehow how, like what the even language, right? Like we know to some degree they can learn, but we don't know the extent. So I think like for me, examples comparing the superiority of humans versus animal or the other way around in whichever area, it's very hard because then I would need to understand their extent as well. And then the second point is, so if, for example, it's a waste for me to build like flights or like planes or anything like that, then I guess like we like humans use it, right? Like it's a way of functioning, some like I guess because I can't just sit on this earth and do nothing also, like I have to do something. So because I don't know, because I was thinking like you're right, if it's the priority is prayer, then whatever else like it comes. So is it that you pray first, then if you have time left over, go ahead and build that plane? Because I guess when I was listening to your comment, I was like, wait, then so we don't need vaccine, we don't need anything, we could just like be this free roaming human, which I don't think is what you're saying. So are we saying like if anything makes you stop thinking that prayer is less important, or like the work you're doing is just so much more superior than that prayer, and you're not, I guess, like fast toward it, and then you should rethink how you're acting? Like, is that what I'm understanding correct? I guess from all the comments that was happening. Sorry.
Let's hear.
I mean, just I guess the way Brother Bikram is presenting a topic, it's very I find it almost repulsive is like a hard word, but
I'm trying to.
it's definitely repulsive to my humanness, I feel. Because on one hand, I can understand and be like, why are you following these interests? Why are you going into these fields? Why are you studying this? Why are you doing that? And then here I'm like, I'm created that way. Like I have this curiosity. I find joy in things. I love to do certain things. Someone loves to make a garden. Another person loves to build a robot. Another person loves to think about flying his whole life. That's his only goal. Another person wants to go to Mars. I mean, I think if there's one thing that we're superior, and like kind of what I'm saying is that humans have this extreme variety of things they love and that they want to do, and they have these emotions that they find. And I think this is a very human thing to do, to follow. And I think that's why I'm kind of finding what you're saying repulsive, because it's almost, I guess you probably are not saying that, but it almost feels like, stop, don't follow those emotions. Don't think like that. Don't spend time. Go at home, sit in your home and pray. Don't go to hellfire. That's almost what it feels like. I don't think you're saying that, because it feels very inhuman to me. And that's like, expound, so I'll just give it back to you.
Thank you.
Because of this Imam in the Jumu'ah.
Time do we end?
9.
No, 8:45.
Okay. So we're quickly then. So going back to maybe your question, that like, let's take the Yusuf's example. Yusuf comes to this house. It's the painting is bad, and then he starts painting, and it makes sense because there was a need, and he paints. But imagine that he doesn't stop there. He says, do you know what? The rest of my life, I will spend mixing these paints, painting my wall again and again with different colors.
I guess more realistic example would be, let me add another wall here, split the house.
Yeah, okay, let's do renovations for the sake of renovations, right? because I enjoy it and I am created this way. I like it, renovations. You cannot stop me. He puts all these walls everywhere and then, demolish them and then put other walls. And you would look at him and would say, like, don't you have other business to do? Like, are you wasting your time? You would say, right?
Or at least you would say you're not the owner of this house, you're just a renter.
That's a maybe bigger important point. Yes. So, like to the extent there's a need that it satisfies, it makes sense. And if the need is real, it makes better sense what you do. So we build these machines, the flying machines, planes, and so on, or vaccines or whatever, to the extent they satisfy a need that you own. So for instance, a need to work, let's say, like being able to work with people overseas is not a need that I own. It's a need that has imposed on me. Like I work with people overseas, like I collaborate with them, let's say. Like I'm living here, I'm working with someone in Europe, right? If that was not the case, I wouldn't care as a human being. But if somebody said, no, you have to do that, hence the invention of internet, whatever. I'm not criticizing internet, just giving an example, just one aspect of it. The need of, being able to produce more computations is not a need that I would own. But somebody said, no, you have to do it because I want to earn more money and you have to work with computers. Now the invention of the computers, this is not a need that I own. I find myself in such a reality, of course, I will use computers, but the computers doesn't satisfy a need that I own, regardless whether I like it or not. Because the same enjoyment, believe me, if you lived a few years ago, like a few centuries ago, would be satisfied with something else. Same enjoyment. So your enjoyment is not for computers. Whatever it's satisfying is your, the need. So anyway, so it's about, whether it satisfies an actual need or not. And the point Yusuf made is really important. I missed that, to be honest. Like when you look at yourself, you are living in a guest house. Even the body is just a guest house for you. And you say that, no, I own it and I will start remodeling it. I will make it faster. I will make it, fly. Why? The question is always why. Like if you have an answer to that, to be honest, after being honest, if you have an answer to why question, then go for it. But when somebody asks why, if you're just finding it repulsive and it's working, because it should be repulsive, because you should have an answer to why questions. If you don't have an answer to why questions, of course it will be a repulsive one. So, yeah.
Do you have a comment?
And in here again, author's question is, were you created only for this world that you spend all your time on it? So he's not saying don't spend, like he didn't even say spend majority of your time in prayer. He's talking about 5 daily prayers. At most, it's going to take an hour. So we are negotiating about this one. So even we are not willing to put that 1 hour, and author says, if you put that 1 hour, your service in your garden will become a worship. Everything will become a worship because a proper prayer will transform you. So like, we don't even need to go to the other extreme, but even we are having issues with this 1 hour of prayer being properly made. And the reason is I am living life as if I am created for this world. And because I do make a lot of comments, Maryam knows, saying that, oh, actually, we should put a wall and split this kitchen and put some cabinets over there if only the landlord allows me and takes it off the, rent and whatever, just fancying such stuff. It is fun. I like doing such stuff, but I'm not owner of this house. The landlord would say, like, I'm okay with you paying me that much money. I don't want to offer you any further luxury. Go and do it once you buy your own house. Don't mess up with my house, landlord would say. But I'm saying, come on, what sort of a person you are? I'm going to put all my design skills in this house and make it nicer. Landlord says, go and buy your house and there do it. Like, I am in this life. The creator says, I put you here for a purpose. But now I am saying that, no. I have a better opinion of how to live this life than the one who put me in this life and put me with a purpose. So I guess that's why the author is asking, what is your purpose? You're living this life as if you're living only for that world. So I guess this is the part that we need to clarify for ourselves. And of course, we need to do this honestly. When Birkan says that it's repulsive, but when I speak to myself, is it also repulsive? This is what matters. In a conversational language, it might sound like accusation and whatever. But as long as I am comfortable, or am I comfortable with this by myself, I think this is what matters. Otherwise, heated discussions will always happen. And Birkan himself is working in a university, and I don't know how many hours he spends for prayer. So I don't think it's 5 hours. So, I mean, we are all on the same boat in here. So, but the question is, where am I? And even for giving 1 hour to the prayer, am I able to do that? Forget about the rest. Just even for 1 hour, or am I trying to cut from it and put it into other stuff? It might be Instagram, X, Twitter, whatever. Or if not that, reading some, Wikipedia articles. Oh, not Wikipedia articles. I am reading my profession-related articles. Wherever you put it, does it worth it? Or what is the deriving force for doing that? In regards to, like, cutting from this 1 hour of the prayer, does it worth it? I guess this is the question.
Can I add one very quick something very quick? Oh, your question was very good one. I forgot to touch on that one. You were talking about, like, maybe we should give the priority to prayer, and if there's time left, we should do the other things. I guess that's not the solution either. Like, it should be more like the way I see. You define yourself, what you are, your purpose as a human being, and then you do only things that supports this purpose. And the rest, you say it's useless, waste of time, and you cut it. Anything that doesn't support the purpose of your life as a human being is just a waste of time. And in this text, for instance, within this scope, the purpose is prayer. If your profession gives you opportunity to, pray in a more peaceful way, for instance, or facilitate your prayer, then it's not waste. But if it is against your prayer, then it is waste of your time. The question is whether it supports your purpose or not. And I think that's a very simple question.
I think this is a good stopping point. If you feel that the discussion needs to be carried forward, just hold on to any questions that you have, and we can start here next week if you like. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Wa akhiru dawana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Al-Fatiha.